What? You're off.
That's my only salvation in my life since they're gone.
Alright, do I have everyone's vocab? Oh, yeah, sorry.
Oh, it's just because he's sorry. I ran with the Today I
Alright, you guys. Please take your books out. Please take out your books.
It's terrible. I read ahead. It's terrible. And what happens?
Alright, please listen up. Alright. So we read chapter 7 in class or yesterday. Can someone tell me about the dream that Hassan had? Yeah.
We had a dream that him and Amir were like at a lake and everybody was scared of a monster that was in the lake, and then Amir was over the lake and then Hassan followed him and they swam out to the center and it turned out there wasn't a monster and they were like heroes, and then they renamed the lake to like, I don't remember what it was. Weird. Yeah, it was something like
Yes. So she just said they renamed the lake. Thank you, Nina. Good job. To Sultan of Kabul, which was also seen in a previous chapter we read. Where else have they used that term? Zach.
They carved it into a tree.
It did. Carved into a tree. So that's the second time that was used. All right. There was a kite competition. Can somebody go into detail about what happened? Go on.
So we went to the kite competition and Amir wanted to make a kite. So they were the competition began and he was doing really well down like the best kite. And then in the end it was down to him and another blue kite, and he was like thinking about what was going to happen, and then all of a sudden like he just like came to the realization like if he really set his mind to it he could win, so I'm going to win. So like the wind picked up this artillery and like he like knew it was his chance. So he cut the blue kite and won the competition. And then Hassan said that everyone was like how to pay attention, and then Hassan said she would run the blue kite.
Can somebody explain what that means when people run the blue kite? So there are two flights left flying, Amir's and another boy's. The other flight was blue. Amir was able to cut it down, and so the blue flight is floating around, and that's Hassan's job to run after it and catch that flight. So to catch that kite. So he was chasing after the one last kite, which is the most important one to catch and bring back to Amir. Okay. So we will read about that. So turn your books to page 73, please. No, I'm sorry, 73. If you do not have a book, look over at your neighbor's book. I've read to chapter 10. Do you have your book? Okay.
Sorry.
73. All right, you guys. From the bottom of page 73, where the italics start, to the bottom of page 74, please read that page and a little bit silently to yourself right now. Please raise your hand if you're still reading. Is anybody still reading? Okay. So I'm going to start reading at the top of page 75. Please follow along. This is the important scene in the book that he references many times throughout. First chapter specifically where Raheem says there is a way to be good again. This is what he's talking about. What happens here has stuck with Amir for 25 years, so this is very important. Please follow along. The havoc of scrap and rubble littered the alley. Worn bicycle tires, bottles with peeled labels, ripped up magazines, yellowed newspapers, all scattered amid a pile of bricks and slabs of cement. A rusted cast iron stove with a gaping hole on its side tilted against the wall. But there were two things amid the garbage that I couldn't stop looking at. One was the blue kite resting against the wall, close to the cast iron stove. The other was Hassan's brown corduroy pants thrown on a heap of eroded bricks. I don't know, Wally was saying. My father says it's sinful. He sounded unsure, excited, scared, all at the same time. Hassan lay with his chest pinned to the ground. Kamal and Wally each gripped an arm, twisted and bent at the elbow so that Hassan's hands were pressed to his back. Asaf was standing over them, the heel of his snow boots crushing the back of Hassan's neck. Your father won't find out, Asaf said, and there's nothing sinful about teaching a lesson to a disrespectful donkey. I don't know, Wally muttered. Suit yourself, Asaf said. He turned to Kamal. What about you? Well, it's just a Hazara, Asaf said. But Kamal kept looking away. Fine, Asaf snapped. And all I want you weaklings to do is hold him down. Can you manage that? Wally and Kamal nodded. They looked relieved. Asaf knelt behind Hassan, put his hands on Hassan's hips, and lifted his bare buttocks. He kept one hand on Hassan's back and undid his own belt buckle with his free hand. He unzipped his jeans, dropped his underwear. He positioned himself behind Hassan. Hassan didn't struggle, didn't even whimper. He moved his head slightly, and I caught a glimpse of his face. Saw the resignation in it. It was a look I had seen before. It was the look of the Lamb. Tomorrow is the 10th day of Dhul Hijjah, the last month of the Muslim calendar, and the first 3 days of Eid al-Adha, or Eid al-Qurban, as Afghans call it. A day to celebrate how the Prophet Ibrahim almost sacrificed his own son for God. Baba had I handpicked the sheep again this year, a powder white one with crooked black ears. We all stand in the backyard, Hassan, Ali, Baba, and I. The mullah recites the prayer, rubs his beard. Baba mutters, "Get on with it," under his breath. He sounds annoyed with the endless praying, the ritual of making the meat halal. Baba mocks the story behind this Eid, like he mocks everything religious. But he respects the tradition of Eid-e-Korban. The custom is to divide the meat in thirds, one for the family, one for the friends, and one for the poor. Every year, Baba gives it all to the poor. The rich are fat enough already, he says. The mullah finishes the prayer, Amen. He picks up the kitchen knife with the long blade. The custom is to not let the sheep see the knife. Ali feeds the animal a cube of sugar, another custom to make death sweeter. The sheep kicks, but not much. The mullah grabs it under its jaw and places the blade on its neck. Just a second before he slices the throat in one expert motion, I see the sheep's eyes. It is a look that will haunt my dreams for weeks. I don't know why I watched this yearly ritual in our backyard. My nightmares persist long after the bloodstains on the grass have faded. But I always watch. I watch because of that look of acceptance in the animal's eyes. Absurdly, I imagine the animal understands. I imagine the animal sees that his imminent demise is for a higher purpose. This is the look. I stopped watching, turned away from the alley. Something warm was running down my wrist. I blinked, saw it was still biting down on my fist, hard enough to draw blood from the knuckles. I realized something else. I was weeping. From just around the corner, I could hear our steps' quick, rhythmic runs. I had one last chance to make a decision. One final opportunity to decide who I was going to be. I could step into that alley, stand up for Hassan, the way he'd stood up for me all those times in the past, and accept whatever would happen to me. Or I could run. In the end, I ran. I ran because I was a coward. I was afraid of Asaf and what he would do to me. I was afraid of getting hurt. That's what I told myself as I turned my back to the alley, to Hassan. That's what I made myself believe. I actually aspired to cowardice because the alternative, the real reason I was running, was that Asaf was right. Nothing was free in this world. Maybe Hassan was the price I had to pay, the lamb I had to slay to win Baba. Was it a fair price? The answer floated in my conscious mind before I could work it. He was just a Hazara, wasn't he? I ran back the way I'd come, ran back to the all but deserted bazaar. I lurched into a cubicle and leaned against the padlock swinging doors. I stood there, panting, sweating, wishing things had turned out some other way. About 15 minutes later, I heard voices and running footfalls. I crouched behind the cubicle and watched Asaf and the other two sprinting by, laughing as they hurried down the deserted lanes. I found myself to wait 10 more minutes, then I walked back to the rutted track that ran along the snow-filled ravine. I squinted in the dimming light and spotted Hassan walking slowly toward me. I met him by a leafless birch tree on the edge of the ravine. He had the blue kite in his hands, and that was the first thing I saw. And I can't lie now and say my eyes didn't scan it for any rips. His chiffon had mud smudges down the front, and his shirt was ripped just below the collar. He stopped, swayed on his feet like he was going to collapse. Then he steadied himself, handing me the kite. "Where were you? I looked for you," I said. Speaking those words was like chewing on a rock. Hassan dragged a sleeve across his face, wiped snot and tears. I waited for him to say something, but we just stood there in silence, in the fading light. I was grateful for the early evening shadows that fell on Hassan's face and concealed mine. I was glad I didn't have to return his gaze. Did he know I knew? And if he knew, then what would I see if I did look into his eyes? Blame, indignation, or, God forbid, what I feared most, guileless devotion. That, most of all, I could not bear to see. He began to say something and his voice cracked. He closed his mouth, opened it, and closed it again. Took a step back, wiped his face, and that was as close as Hassan and I ever came to discussing what had happened in the alley. I thought he might burst into tears, but to me really, he didn't, and I pretend I hadn't heard the crack in his voice. Just like I pretended I hadn't seen the dark stain in the seat of his pants, or those tiny drops that fell from between his legs and stained the snow black. "Agha Sahib will worry," was all he said. He turned from me and limped away. It happened just the way I imagined. I opened the door to the smoky study and stepped in. Baba and Rahim Khan were drinking tea and listening to the news crackling on the radio. Their heads turned, and a smile played on my father's lips. He opened his arms, I put down the kite and walked into his big, hairy arms. I buried my face into the warmth of his chest and wept. Baba held me close to him, rocking me back and forth. In his arms, I forgot what I'd done, and that was good. So you guys can take a second and talk about that if you would like.
Somebody told me that my sister has I don't think if it was very facade, I would I would have been like quiet and been like being now like I would have been like ignorance and cowardice.
Oh wait, you said you're with some. No, I thought you were saying that you picked them. It's three of them. I would honestly do that.
Alright, let's number 7, please.
No, it would happen.
No. Alright. This is a lot if you have not read this yet. Take in. So, here is a quote, or a think about. There is no justifiable reason for Amir to have betrayed his son. Raise your hand if you agree with this. Raise your hand if you do not agree with this. And that's perfectly fine. That's okay, yeah. We are actually going to have a debate. So I'm going to put you in 6 groups. 3 groups will be defending this quote. 3 groups will be opposing this quote. I will assign it. So I'm going to put you in groups. When you are in your groups, listen up please. Pick one captain. That's the one person who will be speaking and presenting your case. So you're going to have 12 minutes to do research. You can pull exact quotes from the book or evidence from the book. You need at least 3 pieces of evidence from the book, specific quotes that actually come out of the chiropractor. And then from there you can build your argument and expand on that. So you have 12 minutes to pull that, then each group will take 2 minutes to present their arguments, and then we follow by questions. So I will assign the groups right now. It'll be you or one. You or one.
I nominate Tony captain. I nominate Yvonne. So Mr. Captain. Oh, what? Yeah, that's good. I hope so. Hey, are you good with that? We did no space.
Alright. Please get in your groups. Make sure you guys are working. You have 12 minutes from now and you'll be presenting.
Okay,
Okay. You guys are opposing. You guys are defending it.
No, we're defending.
Then start.
Okay, we're defending. Let's go.
Yeah, I was looking for class.
Oh, God.
Let's get our 3 quotes, guys, right? 3 quotes.
Okay,
Surprise.
Me and Kenan said,
I mean, not it.
I'll describe it.
You guys hear back there? Okay, so go here.
What? Debating.
flavors.
I called it, I told you.
Why did you show blueberry and watermelon?
Yeah, another quote.
Say he could have gotten involved.
Where's that?
Or maybe you could say
Okay, we need 3 quotes.
but bizarre what is God's devotion? That it's
Oh yeah, and he's just
He is really
The bizarre was 2 minutes away.
or I could try to keep up with their
And the one thing that
so yeah, you can
he's only on
But he was Zara, but he was still impressed. Even if he wasn't
It's as if you're watching your own dog.
That's just the one that don't mean
Oh, you had your sister.
Whenever I get to it tastes so much better. In my opinion, it would win Bobby. Okay, and we have that. Price
Nope. Convince your head should do.
I was afraid of that.
You guys writing it down. You don't have to write it down. Look at my card.
This is super
You guys can come up with a lot more than just 3 too, since you have 5.
What are you doing to my house?
Nose go.
Go for your nose.
That's just how you go.
Oh, I see.
Is it pointed at this?
You are so lucky.
You are so lucky.
That would have been funny.
Yeah.
Wait, what if she sees the baby?
Yeah, but that's like
You're like, what the fuck? You gave me fun. Come on.
I think Snapchat
I'm
like gassy.
I was hoping, I was literally hoping that would be so good. She like goes to play back and he's just
Actually, wrong button.
it's melon.
I got it corrected.
Please?
melon flavor.
Yeah.
Which is so feminine. I don't know why.
Give me some.
Okay, let's get her an argument. Okay, argue that.
Okay, why did we give her? It's redundant.
What are we doing with that photo? The last one.
Oh, how it it conceals the emotions on his face, so that I'm not going to see that. Oh, I see. So
Yeah, sounds great.
You can absolutely
It's kind of like he feels guilty about it.
have at least 3 quotes and then.
well, that is especially justifiable by others.
Sounds awesome.
Oh yeah, she has
It's Sean. Sean.
Are you guys doing?
So he actually debated and argued with her.
So you're going to present this and have your quotes and then expand on them
Argue with him.
at the very end. So each group's going to have 2 minutes to present and then you can ask questions. So as they're presenting, write them down and so you'll have like a list of questions that you have. So if they say something that you don't agree with, be ready to argue back. Yeah.
Do it. No,
We had to.
and my feet were touching the
So it's not like a typical debate where you will be able to like respond right away. But you will have time.
No, justifiable. I think trying to make it what they say.
You can always think of what they're going to say and have some sort of rebuttal or question for them based on that.
I mean, there's no like actual.
Yes.
Where are you?
I'd say you just go for school.
But we need our
For my program.
Argue about everything. What are you doing? 7 You're about to clarify.
What are you talking about?
Alright, 3 minutes!
I don't get my, why are you covering your wrist? Well, the only cut new. No. Well, I'm sorry. Two different speakers.
Any idea? I'll have to run close. You could have run and got it. But the thing was only 15 minutes away, so you could have run and got there. They want to give you all a chance to see it. You're tough. That's why we voted. I mean, I just do this. You guys didn't make it. He knows he goes well.
Okay, just say like using big words and stuff. You got this.
No, but I like what I'm saying is I turn it on for 10 seconds every day, just buy something new or not buy it. I don't even like waste money.
And this one, he had no clue what he was saying. But he could have gotten it. Or he could have yelled and had chicken and stuff.
Take the pass.
I want you to look at
You guys ready?
Yeah.
Are you guys working?
Yeah.
Say something. Say something.
Instead of a male, female, we can male.
Yeah.
But we can't do the all the way up.
Say something about how
You were the
the
Yeah.
bazaar was only 15 minutes away. He could have got this food.
Or like how
Alright, we have 30
like the same thing as the
seconds.
Hazara, like was his friend also.
I don't think that's a good idea. Like, not actually. Well, then why would you say
I was gonna say when you combine the get that time.
yeah.
Okay, that is time. Alright, listen up, please. Take a seat.
That's why I wrote it.
Alright, each group.
You hit her all the time. Oh yeah. You were like here for
Okay, each group will be presenting for 2 minutes. We will go first group, second group, all the way to 6, and then we will have questions. So, you guys
Go back to
Okay. Please make sure we are paying attention. If you have any questions, write them down. You will be able to ask them after. Please stay focused.
So we did the justice bubble, like it's okay kind of thing. So we said the world is very unfair. Hassan was born a Hazara, and it is not Amir's fault that he was born as the lowest class, like ever. So Hassan should be grateful for all the stuff that he gets from Amir's family and all the good stuff that he gets, because other Hazaras are treated unfair. So he should be grateful, and it's totally fine. And there's a quote in the book that says, "Afghan is the land of Pushtan. It always has been, always will be. We are the true Pashtuns. We are the true Afghans, not the splat nose here. His people pollute our homeland, our watan. They dirty our blood." So Amir's a Pushtan. He's like the greatest thing in Afghan, and Hassan is the Hazara, which is like the lowest thing. So it's okay for Pushtans to push over Hazaras because they're better and they're richer and they're apparently better looking because they don't have flat nose. Okay, there's another quote. But if so, then why, when Baba's friends come to visit with their kids, didn't I ever include Hassan in our games? Why did I always play with Hassan when no one was around? So Hassan was grateful to have a friend like Amir. Amir was, top-notch, whatever. So he was very grateful to have a friend, because if Amir wasn't there, Hassan wouldn't have any friends, because he's a Hazara, and all he would do was play with his dad at his home, whatever. And there's another quote that says, this is Amir, "But there was something fascinating, albeit in a sick way, about teasing Hassan. It's a natural thing for Amir to tease Hassan because Hassan's a lower class." So,
it's time. Thank you. Alright, hold on, next group.
Okay, so we say that there's no justifiable reason for Amir to have betrayed Hassan. And our first quote of evidence is, "If you ask me to, I would," and it's referring to the time when Hassan and Amir were talking, and Amir said that I would sooner eat or no, Hassan said that. And then, so then Amir questioned like, oh, would he actually like eat dirt if I told him to, because that's like really disgusting. And like he asked Hassan to like just like test to see like how like where his loyalty lay. And so then Hassan said yes, I would. If you asked me to, I would, which just shows that he is 100% completely loyal to Amir and would do anything he told him to because he trusts him and he like is like he really listens to him for everything. And second quote is, for you 1,000 times over. And this Hassan said this to Amir after they had won the kite fighting competition. And he said, like, I would run the kite for you, the blue kite for you, 1,000 times over. Which just shows that, like, he would sacrifice so much for Amir, and that everything he does is basically, like, for the benefit of Amir. And, like, as long as Amir is happy and safe and okay, then Hassan is also okay. And then, did you know that Hassan meets at the same breast? They say there is a brotherhood between people who says the same breast, and that's basically saying they were raised together, and they've been together since they were babies, really young, when they were really young, and because of that, like, they're basically, like, united for life, and that they should always be there for each other. So even though Hassan is, like, has been devoted to Amir this whole time, Amir should return that to him.
Take care. Very good. Okay, so naturally as humans, we're all like born differently, and we all have like different emotions. So for some people, they're more cowardly, and others are ready to stand up and fight. In situations and crimes like these, in the law, it's called the fight or flight experience. So in this stressful and dangerous situation, Amir chose the flight instead of the fight. And there are three justifiable reasons why Amir is okay to have betrayed his mom. My first quote is, I was afraid of Hassan and what he would do to me. I was afraid of getting hurt. Well, Amir was afraid of getting hurt as well, just as Hassan was getting hurt. So when he was in that stressful and dangerous situation, he decided that it would be best if he just ran. Another is, this isn't the end for you either, Amir. This shows that Amir had stepped in. He could have put both himself and Hassan in danger, and then both of them would have been in trouble. If Amir had run and gotten someone, he could have saved both of them. He didn't do that, but he could have been punished. Cool. And then my last quote, nothing was free in this world. Maybe Hassan was the price I had to pay, the lamb I had to slay to win Baba. Amir has been fighting for his father's love his entire life, and all he wants is to have that fatherly love. And so in order to get that, he had to sacrifice one of his good friends. So this is another reason why it is okay for Amir to have betrayed his father. 30 seconds. And so, you don't have to keep going. No.
Sit down and check over here. Where you going?
Alright, let's refocus. Go for it.
Okay. Obviously, there's no justifiable reason for Amir to have betrayed Hassan because even Hassan can't even justify it in his mind. His own cowardice is actually his mental shield against what is actually right and what's wrong. Our quote is, I ran because I was a coward. He already knows that he did what he already knew that what he did was wrong. He even calls himself a coward, which is completely just shielding himself from emotions that are just too hard to. His emotions are just completely going in the other direction, but his cowardice is completely just pushing him forward over the edge of being wrong. And then there's another quote that said, I stood there panting, sweating, wishing things had turned out some other way. He already knows that he could have actually saved him. There's a choice between what he could have done and what he couldn't have done, and he chose to ran. But he could have just protected Hassan, but what Hassan has always done to him. Hassan always protects him, and Amir should have returned the favor to Hassan because Hassan is such a lower class, he should envy Amir, but he doesn't. He's completely pure and just protects Amir. And then another quote is, I was grateful for the early evening shadows that fell on Hassan's face and sealed mine. So then his emotions are being hidden of guilt. His guilt is written upon his face. He does not want Amir, he doesn't want Hassan to see his own guilt laid across his face, showing that giving Hassan a hint that he might have seen what happened to Hassan. Hassan would have been completely just maybe destroyed and from mentally for the rest of his life.
Yep, thank you. There is justifiable reason for Amir to have betrayed Hassan, and we have 3 reasons. One, how productive would it have been if... Hold on, I'm sorry. You guys can stop putting yourself on. How productive would it have been if Amir had stepped in? His one goal to participate in the kite competition was to win the kite. If he had gone in, his only goal of participating in the kite competition would be gone. He would have gone in, gotten beat up, and then where would the kite be? Asef would have took it. And Hassan and Amir could go home being beaten up, and they could explain all they could, but I don't think, his dad wouldn't be as proud as if Amir had brought home the kite. So, well, Hazaras, everyone has grown up thinking that Hazaras are below Pashtuns. So it's kind of explained in this quote how, for the price of the kite, Amir, his dad, has deprived of his dad. Was it a fair price? And the answer floated to my conscious mind with word for word. He was just a Hazara, wasn't he? And we also all know that even how much we try to fight it, there is some kind of status quo, especially where Amir lives. And Hasef happens to be at the top with his famous silver brass knuckles. If you were a kid living in the Wazir Akbar Khan section of Kabul, you knew about Asef and his famous stainless steel brass knuckles. Thanks. Good job, you guys. All right, anybody have any questions?
So I came up with another idea.
Come out. You're not hacking up quite yet. Sit down, please. All right, question.
Can we just ask a question to some random group? Or just some group?
If you have a specific group, you can ask them.
Okay, I have a question for Noman's group.
Hey, you guys, he's asking you.
If they specifically said that he's just a Hazara, he's also can be considered a human being with a personality and he just wants to be like any other human being. He wants to be content and wants to do anything he wants in his life. That won't affect anyone else's life.
Yeah, but we just had to represent our side.
Yeah.
I don't really feel that
over.
way.
Yeah. I don't feel that way.
People do feel that way. Like,
All right, I have a question.
that's our
Go with him.
So, valid point. You were given a side and you tried to prove your side. My question in response, understanding what you said, in response to that, has anybody in the history of humankind ever said, oh, well, it's okay to exploit, discriminate, hurt, violate them because they are other?
Yeah, a lot. Yeah.
Has it ever been okay?
No. In human rights, it's not okay, but in like some way, like in the back, in like the 1960s,
Well, people think
it's okay.
That's just one of those things. I'm really glad that we said that before we left the room today.
All right, time out.
Oh!
Time out. Please read chapter 8 tonight. Let's see about chapter right tomorrow. Thank you. You don't need to spend the minute.
Teachers, reminder, grades are due. Grades are due. Please get your grades in on time. Ms. Bloom really needs your support.